Hey there, Night Owls. You're listening to Dead Frequency Radio, the place where real people share their real hauntings and we try to make sense of the unknown. In this episode, we'll be doing a deep dive on one of our favorite locations, Old Pickens County Jail.
Built in 1906, the old Pickens County Jail still stands in the heart of Jasper, Georgia, its red brick walls holding over a century of secrets. From screams echoing through iron bars to shadows that seem to move on their own, the jail's history is just as unsettling as the hauntings that came after.
We've walked these cold halls twice now, and if what we've captured is any proof, something inside of that jail definitely has never left.
So, the jail was built in 1906 and served as the main county jail until the mid-1980s. It was used for men, women, and even juveniles, all in kind of cramped, sometimes brutal conditions.
Right, and the architecture of the facility is red brick. Although on the outside, I will say it's more of a white wash kind of brick. There's barred windows. The cells inside are really small and narrow. And there are gallows on the second floor that are said that they have never been used, but we cannot confirm or deny that. And then in the downstairs home side, the sheriff and his family live down there. The inmates, so the sheriff and his family actually lived down there while the inmates were upstairs. So that essentially meant that daily life was happening on one side and punishment was happening on the other side, but all in the same space.
After it closed, the building sat abandoned for years, fueling local legends and ghost stories. But today, it's preserved by the local historical society. Reports of paranormal activity seem to still continue.
And honestly, even when the doors closed for good, something or somebody definitely, based on the evidence that we have gathered so far, seemed to stay behind.
So some of the reports that we've gotten, and some of these, of course, are from our own experience. Disembodied voices, whispers, moans, the sound of men arguing, apparitions, figures seen in the upstairs cell block or peering from windows. I'm pretty sure Aaron actually kind of saw a shadow figure at one point. I think I was talking to Becca.
Yes, so we were upstairs in the men's cell block, and the way that we were all positioned, one of the bright white camera lights was broadcasting onto the very back of the wall. So essentially it like shined through the men's cell onto the very back wall of the men's cell ward. And while we were all talking, I saw it looked like a full grown human walked through and blocked out the camera light just enough to cast their own shadow. And we walked around the whole, men's cell ward, and it's a small enough space that you can see everybody that's in there. We were all completely stationary, and still to this day, I have no explanation of that. There's also reports of cold spots and EMF spikes in the cell areas, doors slamming, footsteps when no one else is upstairs. Also, in the downstairs office part, we actually just last night were reviewing evidence and we captured a incredible, incredible piece of EVP evidence. It sounds like somebody's walking around the room whistling an old-timey song. And
Yeah.
it's insane.
I know, I definitely personally have been pressed on in the men's cell block. Um, Like, I was doing the Estes method, and it felt like someone was literally, like, on my shoulders, pushing down. And then you had something similar happen, except it was like, I think it was your hair.
Right. So I was doing the Estes method. I was sitting in front of the men's cell, and it felt like somebody was standing inside of the men's cell, reaching their hands through the cell bars and just touching the back of my neck. Ew, gross. Freaked me out.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. Liz. So I
Mhm.
actually had a question that I wrote down I wanted to ask you about this particular place. What claim did you least believe before we went in?
Probably the doors slamming in the footsteps.
Okay,
Just because the doors, you know, like at jails, especially old jails, the doors are really heavy and really hard to close.
right,
Um, so I was like, I don't think it'll slam any doors. But we definitely did hear plenty of footsteps.
right. Um, so the first time that we actually went to Pickens County Jail, we found it on Google under a haunted location in Georgia search. We were looking in Georgia because it's not too far of a drive from where we're based. And when we found it on Google, we saw the building and immediately we were like, yes, we absolutely have to go. We called and spoke with Mr. Bill. Shout out Mr. Bill. Um,
Mhm.
we also decided to reach out to another team based in Alabama, Seeking Beyond Paranormal, and reaching out to them, their team members, David, Jekka, and Dan, all decided to tag along, and they actually came with us the first time that we ever went.
It was pretty fun. I really enjoyed it. Um, the first time that we went, we took cat balls, an EMF reader. Um, David and Jekka brought a mag light and a REM pod. We had two spirit boxes, one from us, one from them. And then we had a digital camera, some video cameras, and dowsing rods. Um, so that was pretty cool. It was fun getting to use a REM pod for the first time.
Yes,
And I legitimately, like, that's one of the pieces of equipment that we're going to eventually get. We don't know when because we do pay for this out of pocket, but like eventually we're going to get a REM pod.
right. Um, we also, so the first time that we ever went into the jail, um, there's this immediate feeling that hits you. This building just has this like weight to it. You can almost like feel it in the air. The walls are thick. The ceilings are kind of heavy, concrete, and even the steel doors have this like presence to them. It's cool in there, um, not just temperature wise, no pun intended. Um, but it does have in certain areas, I would say, a different kind of cold, and like anybody who's been in paranormal knows what I'm talking about. It's like a different kind of cold where it's like the building itself has almost like a history to it, like a emotion to it.
Right. And it's quiet, like really quiet, not in a peaceful way. It's the kind of silence that makes you like hyper aware of every little creak, every footstep, even your own breathing. Um, Upstairs where the cell blocks are, it's easy to feel the heaviness of what those spaces were used for. And downstairs where the sheriff and his family once lived, there's like this really strange contrast. Like
Yes.
normal life and confinement are layered on top of each other in the same building.
And also, even though it is a museum now and it's not a functioning jail, all that original architecture and like building and material, it still carries like a vibe and an energy. So, kind of segueing off the history, one of the interesting crimes that occurred in Jasper, Georgia, which is actually where Pickens County Jail is, happened in 1927. There was a policeman, his name was Lee Cape, and he had crossed a group of some um, very bad men, called the Night Riders. Feel free to look that up, but I'm just giving you a content warning. You know, we do not support them or what they stood for. This is literally just historical fact. So, policeman Lee Cape crossed one of these men. He arrested one of them for moonshining. Um, Lee Cape actually knew that they were eventually going to come for him, and to the extent that he told his wife, when they do get me eventually, I'll be so old that I won't have lost too many years anyway. Ironically enough, in September of 1927, Lee went to conduct a car search, and the men whose vehicle he was searching shot him, put him in the trunk of their car, drove him to a remote location. They stripped his body of all his clothing. They removed his head from his body, and when his body was eventually discovered by a person who was out hunting, his head was on one side of the street and his body was on the other side.
That piece of history, when you first told me that information, my mouth hit the floor. I was so stunned.
And
I was like,
anybody can feel
oh,
free to fact check it. Google is a thing. This is 100% true fact. This is documented history.
yes. Speaking of more documented history, there was also a lot of severe health plagues in the area, such as dysentery and tuberculosis. You can feel the seriousness of the place. It's not screaming at you with ghosts or anything like that, though some visitors swear they've felt strange things, but it does make you stop, look around, and feel just a little small, like the walls themselves are holding on to the echoes of all those years. Some standout moments that I would say that we had were Aaron's name coming through the Estes method as many times as it did was absolutely bonkers crazy. I also remember when I was under the Estes method upstairs in the men's cell block that while I was listening, I felt someone almost like lay against my back and shoulders, as I was mentioning earlier, like how they were just pushing down. There was also a moment when I was chit-chatting with Jekka. We did discuss this a little bit earlier, about a paranormal experience that I had at the Pensacola Lighthouse in Florida. Aaron did see that shadow figure walk across, so that's one that definitely stuck out in my mind, especially because the way that everybody had been sitting there, like I was sitting down, Jekka was sitting down, Aaron and Dan and David were all like in the same area standing next to each other. There's no way anybody could have made that shadow go across unless it was something that we couldn't see with the naked eye.
Right. And I am the only person who saw that. And unfortunately, I do not have cameras in my eyeballs. I wish I did. But that was one of the craziest things because I was so sure that it was one of our crew that was with us. And like, if you go to our YouTube page and you watch the Pickens County Jail video, you in this particular portion, you see me looking around and doing almost like a head count. I still to this day don't know what that was. I would
Yeah.
personally say the moment that shocked me the most would be we were doing the Estes method upstairs in the men's and women's cell ward. You and Jekka were both had the headphones on under the Estes method, and David was saying, because we do know there are 2 documented suicides there. David was
Right.
saying, if you were one of the spirits who committed suicide here, I just want you to know I'm so sorry that you felt so in despair that you felt the need to do that. And at that exact moment, Jekka, under the Estes method, said, maybe wanting, and then you said love. So it was like, David was saying, I'm so sorry you felt so in despair that you felt the need to, take your own life. And then you and Jekka together said, maybe wanting love. For me, that just showed the reality of some of the weight, the emotional weight that you encounter doing this. And it was an
Yeah.
incredible experience. It did not feel negative to me. If anything, it made me want to outpour kindness and affection towards them. It just
Right.
goes to show, which this kind of segues into the next topic we're going to talk about, but this is one of the reasons we're going back also.
I'm honestly like super ready to go back. So there's multiple reasons we wanted to return to Pickens. One, it was just like a really great place to investigate. We had a lot of activity there. Two, 98% of our footage got corrupted. So we pretty much only had what David and Jekka got when they investigated with us. Three, I would say, is because there were still rooms there that we didn't actually get the chance to investigate that we really wanted to try out, like the actual bedroom and living room of the house portion where the sheriff and his family lived. That's something I really am looking forward to getting to do the next time we go.
Yes. And I would say too, like even, and we've talked about this before, but the energy difference between when you go somewhere once and you go again, like we went the first time, it was a great experience. But the second time, I don't know what it was, but as soon as we walked inside, there was this heavy, intense, not necessarily bad, just more you need to get prepared to have an extensive amount of activity type of thing.
Yes. Um, so unfortunately our second trip was so short that we didn't really get any repeat noises or sounds. But that doesn't mean we didn't get anything because, I mean, we got whistling, laughing, something rubbed up against the camera mic on the jail cell door, just to name a few things.
Mm-hmm.
All of that was captured in like a 30-minute time span, which to me is just crazy because hello, that is not your typical investigation in the paranormal world. Like,
Right.
hello, like I can't. What do you mean 30 minutes and we got all of that? You don't, a lot of the time you go places and you get that amount out of hours, not just 30 minutes.
And sometimes not even that much.
Right. Like, it legitimately was, honestly, it was mind blowing to me. So, like, the first time it felt kind of curious, like something was just observing us. But the second time, I would say it definitely felt aware.
Yes. I would definitely have to agree with you. And, before we went the first time and the second time, I tried to find any notorious prisoners or deaths that happened there. The medical, the health plagues that we talked about, the murder of the
Right.
policeman. But inside the jail, there's only two documented deaths that we're aware of, which is two different suicides. Um, However, as I mentioned earlier, they did install gallows when they built the jail in 1906. So although, there are claims they were never used, that's not something we can be sure of, I would say. And that's not to say anybody's lying. That's not to say, anybody's being dishonest, but we don't know what happened. We don't know. So if we don't have the documents, we can't prove anything. Um,
Right.
so one thing I wanted to ask the people who listen is if you were locked away in a place like this 100 years ago, would you, do you feel like move on easily? Because that's one of the things that kind of convinces Liz and I that things like this are still people like this are still lingering behind.
One of the questions that we had was, is this the most active location we've been to? I would say no, not the most, but it's definitely up there on that list. I would personally put it currently at like our second most active location.
I would agree. Right underneath the Gaines house.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Oh, yeah.
which we will cover in a future episode, so stay tuned for that.
Yes.
One of the other questions that we wanted to answer is, would you spend the night there alone? Okay, so I would definitely not spend the night there alone. I would, however, spend the night there with Liz, but I've already told her, we've already covered this. If we ever spend the night anywhere that we're investigating, we both are under the mutual understanding that we're not going to sleep. Like, it
No.
is we're just going to investigate and then leave, and we can go sleep at a different hotel, or we can go home, or whatever. But
Right.
I just know I would not be able to sleep. Liz, what about you? Do you think you'd be able to sleep in a location that we're like actively investigating?
I really don't know because we've never done it before. Like, I want to say if I was exhausted enough, maybe. Maybe. But I don't think I could get exhausted enough. So it's just something we'll have to, maybe one day we'll find out.
Right. So now it is time for the Boo Mail segment.
It looks like we have a submission from Seeking Beyond Paranormal at the Gaines House in Gainesboro, Tennessee. Oh, I love the Gaines House so much. Okay, so David starts off with, it was the last portion of our investigation at the Gaines house. The girls, Jecca and Olivia, wanted to stay downstairs and rest a bit from the evening while Grant and I wanted to head back upstairs for one last session. We did an Estes method session, which involves a spirit box / radio and noise-canceling headphones and a blindfold for sensory deprivation and bias elimination.
He goes on to say, the session was proceeding as most do, with random words received and recited, with myself as the listener and Grant as the asker. However, partway through the session, I started to feel the floor move under my feet as if someone was walking around me. I could feel the distinct sensation of the floorboards bending and flexing like an adult person was pacing around close to me. It was so real, and I was so sure it was a real person that I reached out in an attempt to catch Grant, circling me. My hand didn't meet him, and I would later find out that he never left his chair. I stopped reciting the audio from the headphones and mentioned what I was feeling.
The session went on for a few more minutes before Grant pulled me out. As soon as we came back downstairs, we talked to the girls about what was happening, and surprisingly, they told us that they thought we were walking around up there. Hearing that was both haunting as a person in the chair and satisfying as an investigator, knowing other people were experiencing something I was from another room. The real surprise came weeks later as I was analyzing our audio for any evidence. I came upon the audio clip from that Estes method session, and right there in the waveform were a handful of footsteps right around the time I mentioned feeling the footsteps. It went from a personal experience to a shared group experience to evidence. Someone was walking around me.
It feels like someone's walking around in the room.
Are you walking around the room?
Before we wrap up tonight's episode, we want to give a huge thank you to our friends over at Seeking Beyond Paranormal for sharing their ghost story in this week's Boo Mail.
If you have a personal paranormal experience you'd like us to feature on a future episode, send it our way at spiritseekers2014@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your story and maybe even read it on the show.
And coming soon on November 22nd, we will not be releasing an episode on, I believe it is the 15th, which is the previous Saturday, because we have something coming up shortly after. But coming soon on November 22nd, we're going to be doing our preparing for the unknown, getting ready for our December investigation. So we're going to kind of pull you guys behind the scenes of our next trip. We're going to talk a little bit about the location, but not disclose everything quite yet. We're going to talk about why we chose it, what the reports are of things that have happened there, and what kind of activity and things we're expecting.
Oh, real quick, we would like to ask you, our followers, to leave a comment or a message of your predictions. What do you think that we'll encounter at our next location? From the heart of Jasper, Georgia, the echoes of justice, pain, and memory still linger in the old Pickens County Jail.
Until next time, keep your ears open for the dead frequency.